You know, and I know it's something that, you know, not a lot of everybody, we was having this discussion, they really don't think about it a lot, but it's a necessity.
Right. Well, it is, you know, and oil, gun lubricants, cleaning stuff, it's not sexy like the guns are, you know, it's, but it's something that everybody has to have at some point or another, and people will have their favorites, and they're always looking for new products to try out, and then hopefully they like your product well enough that they want to stick with it and become a loyal customer.
Sure.
But, you know, the issue is it's something people don't give a lot of thought to.
Sure, sure.
You know, so there again, what you try to do is you want to inform the customer as much as possible about what the particular product's going to do for their firearms and for them, whether they're hunting, competitor shooters, just plinking, and you know, then they can make that informed decision and decide if they're going to, you know, buy your product and stick with it.
Absolutely. So I have something that I want to talk about. It's like, it's not only is this product good for, especially this nanotech grease. I've used that on my Schaefer Rest on my bow equipment. Especially in the snow last year here in Idaho, on the spring, because, you know, on that drop away, I wanted to make sure that there was no ice going to get in there.
Right, right.
So explain a little bit about with this nanotechnology as far as the heat element and as far as, you know, sub temperatures.
Right. Now, this particular grease uses nanotechnology, and it's a tungsten disulfide in a base, and what happens
That's a big
is
word.
It is, you know, and basically it's a metal, a lubricant metal, and you know the temperature range on this is in the -400 range up to the +800 range. So huge range. Your average person is never going to be using those ranges.
Right.
But what it does is it tells you that by doing that, anything that you would average hunt in or your equipment would be, you know, subjected to, it's easily going to hold up. Now, what's neat about the nanotech is the technology inside. The tungsten disulfide are in these like little, essentially nano bearings, and then each one of these nano bearings, if you could look at it under a super microscope, it would be like an onion, and it's got a bunch of layers.
Sure. Okay.
So under the pressure and heat of the friction of your firearm moving back and forth, what happens is these little layers unpeel, and they leave what's called a tribofilm on your metal of your firearm.
Okay.
And if you could look at your firearm steel, or any steel for that matter, under a microscope, it's very rough looking, and this is your friction point. So your oils and greases want to create that buffer essentially, so everything stays nice and lubricant and moves. So what happens is basically the nanofilm it leaves behind fills in those asperities and makes everything smoother. So the more you use it, the smoother things get, and of course over time it's going to wear off with friction, but if you just keep applying normal maintenance, you'll actually find your action gets slicker and slicker as you use it, but it never builds up to the point where, you know, it would cause too much friction, and build up.
So if you do, say for instance, you have a microscopic scratch, this will fill that in.
Essentially, right, that's what it's doing.
That's kind of the principle behind that.
Right. Yeah, it's basically a high pressure additive that's designed to smooth the metal.
Oh, right.
So,
well, I'm thinking ahead of, like, I'm not a huge waterfall guy, you know, but if these guys are just shooting right after one another, you know, that action is slapping, you know, shooting 1,000 rounds essentially a day.
Yes,
maybe.
absolutely.
This product is going to keep that from wearing out.
Right. Well, and we sponsor a lot of competition shooters, and especially 3-gun shooters, rifle, pistol, and shotgun. Go to a lot of matches, and you know, it's not untypical for in a day's worth of matches. If you're shooting a 2-day match, you know, you may shoot several hundred rounds of each caliber each day, and you know, you're in dirty, dusty environments. Things are moving fast. You don't have time to clean your guns.
No.
You know, so what they'll do is they'll be applying more oil or grease or whatever, just squirting it in, and keep things going. But what's nice about it is, you know, you see a lot more abuse going on to the firearm than your average person is going to use, and by doing that and showing look how well it works in these abusive types of conditions, what's it going to do for the average guy who's a regular hunter or plinker? If you're in a part of the country maybe where, you know, you got different environments, maybe a lot of heat or a lot of cold or more moisture than others, it's going to hold up for you. It's going to do the job.
Right,
And,
right.
and that's what we basically try to get across to people.
Well, yeah, I mean, use it,
Right,
right? I mean,
right,
you want
yeah.
to use it,
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
because if a gun, a bow, anything that this is, that's something that you want to have passed down for generations.
Sure, right.
And it goes right down to this is a disposable item.
Yes,
Your
right.
gun, you don't want that to be a disposable item.
Exactly, and I'm glad you bring that up because we try to price all of our products as an expendable.
Sure.
So you can go out and you can spend quite a bit on cleaning supplies.
Sure.
And a lot of good products out there, absolutely. But what happens is are you gonna really utilize an expensive product more so than you might be a less expensive product? So
Right.
what our goal is to give our customers a high-end, high-quality product and try to stay up with the newest technologies, but at the same time give it to you at a truly expendable price.
Sure. Well,
So
you just said some pretty big fancy words. so-
right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's probably what top of the line
Right, it's definitely
as far as the products are
Right.
being used in it.
Right, yeah, absolutely, and it's all newer technology, and we try to stay on top of all that. But at the
Sure.
same time, I realize it's an expendable item, and so you've got a gun that could cost anywhere from hundreds to literally thousands of dollars.
Sure.
And do you really want to be chinsing out essentially on how much lubrication you use
Sure.
on your firearm?
Right.
Well, we don't want you to because we don't want you to potentially ruin that firearm.
Right.
But at the same time, if you price a product like this too expensive, people find they're not using as much as they should.
Sure. Sure.
Um,
Well, and that brings a good point. It's like we're using this product because I mean we're doing all types of extreme.
Right.
And I'm going to be hard on product.
Right.
I've used it whether I knew it was going to work or not. I wanted to know in my mind that spring was not going to freeze
Right.
in
Yes.
snow and conditions, freeze and rain
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yes.
It worked flawless,
Right. Right.
So, that's something that I'm gonna, always want to keep in the back of my mind. Like, hey, I need to have this product on
Right.
hand for extreme environments.
Right. Absolutely.
And another good thing is that the solvent side of
Yes.
things.
Yes.
You talk about as far as the lubricant side of things, the solvent side. One thing comes to mind for me is all the coppers and stuff
Right.
like that
All
are
the
in the
gunk
rifling
and-
of your barrel.
Right.
Tell me what's the what do you want to say, the high tech stuff for
One of the things we
solvent?
do, with our solvents, we try to use water-based solvents. Okay. Just because they're more biodegradable, people
Sure.
feel better about them. With a lot of the technology and chemistry that is out there today, water-based solvents are a lot better than they used to be.
Sure.
So what happens with this particular solvent is, you can put it on, it really cuts through the grime, eats away at that carbon. Most people will put on patches and wipe it on. You leave it on for a couple of minutes, scrub it off.
Sure.
If you got a really heavily carbon part, because we find a lot of people, they'll keep using the oil until eventually they're going to so dirty they've actually really got to truly clean it, and that's
Sure.
where the solvent comes in. And
right.
they might put some in a little pail, and I've done some tests where we've taken some pistol parts.
Okay.
Matter of fact, a firing pin out of a 3-gun competition pistol, I mean, it's very carboned up, and just dropped it in some of the solution, and you could literally sit there and you could watch a cloud of carbon rising off of that part.
Okay.
And we let it sit in there for 5 minutes, scrubbed it down, and then it's squeaky clean after that.
No kidding.
So it's a good way to go. And what we've done too is a lot of people have contacted us and said, we'd love to get it and put it like in a ultrasound cleaner or a parts washing tank.
Oh yeah.
But the problem you have is it's so expensive to ship multiple gallons.
Sure,
So
sure.
what we did this year is we came out with a solvent concentrate.
Concentrate. Okay.
So it's a little bit spendy.
Sure.
This retails for just a hair over $100, but what it does is it'll make you 16 of these,
Oh,
so you can
okay.
refill, and that
Sure.
saves you quite a bit of money if you're shooting a lot. And if you got a parts tank cleaner, it'll make up to 2 gallons of solution.
Oh, wow.
And that solution will actually last you quite a long time
Oh, I bet,
because a
yeah.
lot of the carbon and residue just floats to the bottom, and you can even filter it off and keep reusing it.
Yeah.
You know, so I want you to get the most of your money out of
Bang
it.
for your buck.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
And since it's water based, you're going to get a little bit of evaporation, but you can kind of top that off, and then at some point you're going to notice it's not working as well as it used to, and
Sure.
it's probably time to replenish it with more solvent or completely change it out.
Right. I see.
So.
Those are, something that it goes right back to the thing where I'm saying it's like it just slips over your mind.
Right.
I do it a lot. It's like
Right.
you get done with a hunt. Like I just got back from a bear hunt. It's like I know I need to clean my bow. I know
Right.
I need to clean off the cams. I know I
Right.
need to clean a lot of the grime that we were
Right.
traipsing around in the backcountry on.
Right.
I know I need it, but it's
But-
also a time like, oh man, life shouldn't be so fast paced that you
Right.
shouldn't use these products
Sure.
to make sure it happens.
Absolutely. And I know my daughter's a competitive shooter.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. We travel around a lot. She shoots a lot. Sometimes after a long, grueling day of shooting, the last thing you want to do is go back to the hotel room or whatever and clean the guns.
Give her a good
Yeah.
scrub
You
down.
know, you want to go get a steak and, you
Relax for a minute.
relax, right? So, even in harsh environments, sometimes we're out, it's raining
Sure.
or it's extremely dusty, you just keep applying some oil.
Right,
So
right.
on really bad days, she'll open up her action, she'll squirt a little bit of oil in there, get everything moving around. And if it may be a little bit before you can get back to cleaning your guns,
Right.
your gun is protected.
Sure,
Not only is it
sure.
going to work when you take it out of the bag to shoot, but if it's a little bit wet, excellent corrosion resistance.
Right,
So
right.
that water is going to beat up and sit on the surface and then evaporate off, and you're not going to end up with a rusty part.
Right.
So that's where a lot of the stuff comes in, and of course, even the oil, it has a different technology, but it does the same thing. It leaves a super microfine film on that metal.
Sure.
And in the oil industry, it's called a tribofilm.
Okay.
And basically, what you're doing is you're just filling in these surfaces, and it also creates a point where it's a corrosion inhibitor, essentially.
Right.
That's where it helps. And then we do have some people that even just use the oil to clean their guns too.
Right.
So it can be used as a cleaner and a lubricant, and it works just fine. I encourage people to use it. And then sometimes when the gun gets just super filthy, or you get to a point where you have like baked on carbon,
Sure.
that's where the solvent really comes in.
Right. Well, being that Casey is a competitive shooter, what would you recommend is enough shots that you need to have this gun solvent be going through the barrel?
Okay, so
I mean, that could be a controversial thing.
it's pretty controversial because a lot of people got a lot of different ideas.
There's always opinions.
Yeah. So here's what she does, and this is what I pretty much recommend. During your competition, or you're going to be firing a lot of rounds, and like I said, through the course of a match, she might fire half a case of each type of ammo through each gun.
Sure.
Keep it lubed up, and when you get home and you finally get a chance to break her down, give it a good cleaning.
Right.
Definitely run the solvent through after you're done.
Sure.
And like one of the things we do is we have like the range ropes, which are just a pour through bowl cleaner.
Right.
It's got a couple brushes in, but what we do that's different is we pre-impregnate it with the oil and the solvent.
I got you.
So the brush area has the solvent in it, and then the oil is throughout the swab. So like when you're traveling, you're out shooting, you're hunting,
Yeah.
you can give your bore a real quick pull through,
Sure.
get it cleaned out, get any excess moisture that might have built up, little extra carbon buildup, get it cleaned out. It only takes a second to pull it through.
Sure.
It leaves a nice coat of oil inside there, but not super heavy, just a very light film, and you're good to go.
Right.
And that's a good way to go. And then when you get home, do a real scrubbing.
Right.
You know.
And you could be in an extreme environment, and you owe that to yourself as far as the animal that you're after. But in
Right.
our case, that you want to make sure that, hey, I just put a good ethical shot. I know
Yes.
I'm going to put a good ethical. There's nothing
Yes.
impeding my barrel.
Right, absolutely.
Same way with anything on our boat product. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that,
Right.
hey, my
Right.
pylons are going to be kick back the right speed.
Right.
But it's one of those things. It's a peace of mind. Going back to the peace of mind.
And absolutely, your equipment is expensive.
Oh, sure.
From the cheapest firearm or bow to the most expensive, it creates a value to each person who owns it.
Absolutely.
And everything's proportional.
Right.
So the thing is, proper maintenance. It's not a sexy thing.
Sure.
And nobody really likes to even think about it, or they don't think about it, but it's something everybody does at some point or another.
Yeah.
And by properly maintaining that bow, gun, what have you, it's going to continue to work for you properly, and you're going to get a better lifespan and more money out of it.
Well, absolutely. You got to look at it as just like an engine in your vehicle.
Right.
Change your oil every 3,000 miles.
Right.
That's just a rule of thumb. Same thing with your gun, your bow, anything that you're using your lubricants on.
Right.
In the industry, it's a rule of thumb.
Absolutely.
You don't think about it, but it has to be done.
Right. No, absolutely, you don't. And I mean, even before we started this company, it's not something I thought a lot about.
Sure.
I've been a gunsmith for years, cleaned a lot of guns over the years, and always had my parts tank, and I'd lube everything up. And even then, I didn't really think about it.
Sure.
But then again, too, maybe, I'm dating myself a little bit, but 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of thought given into the technology of lubricants. Right. And I think people You just did it. And I think people started thinking about it more when some of the performance oils started coming out for like the racing industry. And people were like, oh, what is this? And it is bled over into the firearms industry, but in different ways, because obviously a firearm is not a combustion engine.
Sure.
So you'll have maybe different makeups, different weights of oils. What might work great in a hot engine would gum up in your gun once it gets to be 30 degrees outside.
Right. Exactly.
So you have to think about these things as you're developing these products.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, I think I just got a little bit of a lesson here on lubricants. Even though that we were using your product, I feel like now I can go out here and I can say fancy words.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, there's a lot to know about it, and you could go on for hours, and a lot of it's boring stuff.
Sure.
But it definitely is worth people taking the time to look into some of this stuff. And like I was telling you earlier, one of the things we do is everything's tested in a lab.
Sure.
So it's sent out for ASTM testing, which is a standard, and there's labs around the country that do this, and they specialize in lubricant testing. And then we actually publish the data on our website. So if you go and you say, oh, I want to look at the CLP on our website, you look it up, and as you scan down, you will find all the dry, boring details.
Yeah.
But it's all there for you.
Right.
And then even if you don't understand what those ASTM numbers are, you can just copy and paste it into Google, and you can find out exactly what it is, and it gives you something to compare with.
Sure.
And so it gives you that hard data. You're not just taking my word for it.
Right. I would probably never do that because, for one, those things aren't going to affect the things that I'm doing. But maybe it would affect the 3-gun shooter because he's thinking, okay, I want to make sure that I'm having the proper lubrication because I have X amount of seconds to make sure I get that target out.
Sure, absolutely.
Or something like that.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that maybe somebody else in the industry would utilize those type of the technology in this?
Yeah, part of it is I mean, metallurgy in firearms has come a long way. I mean, even in the last 20 years, leaps and bounds, and coatings, besides just the old bluing, you got all these different types of coatings. So it'll definitely help people. And I think these days, because of the internet, people do more research into products than they've ever done before. Before you go into a gun store, you'd ask for suggestions, and hopefully the person behind the counter knew what they were talking about. And of course, things were a little bit simpler. So now, though, I think your average person, when they go in to buy something, they kind of already know what they're going to buy. They've educated themselves. And by having that data there, it allows these people to look at that and say, okay, well, why do I maybe want this over another product? Or even in our own line, why would I want this over this? And they can look at that data, decide what's going to work best for them. And the thing is, what works well for me, you might have some different requirements. So another product might work better. And that's why we do that. And that's why we're also starting to offer other products. Like
Sure.
we'll be coming out with another oil here this year that's a nanotech oil that uses the same technology as the grease does.
Okay.
And there again, is it really better than this? Not necessarily, but it might have some different attributes
Sure,
depending
sure.
on what a person is doing and what they need it for.
Right.
So, you know, and,
Right.
and you get into also bio oils, which are vegetable based. And,
Mhm.
you know, is it a better product? Yes, no, it doesn't really make a difference. But for some people, that's important because they
Right,
want
sure.
something, you know, that's bio.
It's
and
gonna break
they're
down or whatever.
Right, yeah, right. And
right.
it depends. It's a very individual type of thing. And
Right.
it's not up to me to tell people what they should have.
Right.
It's up to me to give them what they want, but give them the best version
Sure.
of what they want.
Right. So be able to,
Right.
to nurture everybody's needs as far
Right,
as that's concerned.
absolutely, you know, and that's why we stay on top of the technology and, you know, try to bring people new and fresh products that are good quality.
Sure, sure. Well, kind of just run down each of these products that you have here
Sure.
for everybody and kind of give them an explanation of basically what this product is.
Okay, so basically here you have our Chemical X,
Sure.
kind of a neat little name, and basically it's the nanotech grease like I talked about.
Sure, sure.
And typically what I like to use this on is my trigger bearing surfaces. It really kind of slicks up the action quite a bit.
I can see that.
I like to use it on locking lugs.
Okay.
Some of my customers actually like to rub it down the length of their bolt. On like auto pistols, it's great in your railways.
Okay.
Especially places where you want the grease to kind of stay. And that's
Sure.
the nice thing about grease. And of course, like I mentioned, it has the nano bearings essentially
Sure,
for a
sure.
simple term, and it's gonna kind of smooth things out. Over use, you'll find your gun gets slicker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the oil, it's a good penetrating oil. Now, when
Okay.
I say penetrating, people think right off the bat, oh, oil can't penetrate metal.
Mhm.
It's not about penetrating metal. There's a lot of confusion about that.
Sure.
What it's doing is it's penetrating between surfaces of where metal comes together from different parts.
I got you.
But at the same time, it's also adhering to the surface
I got
of the metal. And
Right.
there again, all those little asperities that you see on a microscope, they're kind of just smoothing that out and creating essentially a film over
Sure.
the top.
That's where you get the shine.
Right, exactly.
You could have just said shine.
Yep, there's just a shine. Now, the nice thing about this oil too is you'll find like if you're cleaning and shooting a lot,
Mhm.
you start using this and you start noticing your gun gets easier and easier to clean after 3 or 4 applications.
Oh, sure.
And there
Yeah.
again, it's because of that film that
Mhm.
builds up in those asperities. Now, when you wipe a cloth over it, where before you might have to scrub really hard,
Sure.
it comes up a lot smoother.
I got you. Right.
And it's really helpful when you get into like shotgun pistons and things like that,
Mm.
where you get that real heavy buildup. So
Sure.
the first couple times you use that or the solvent, you might be putting some elbow grease into it. You got to
Right,
get it
right.
clean because it's been a while.
Right.
And
right.
all of a sudden now it's clean. You want to keep it that way, so you put that oil on there, and you're going to start noticing a couple cleanings down the road that your gun is a lot easier and faster to clean.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
so don't be chintzy with it.
Well,
you know?
sure, yeah,
You
yeah.
use it on there.
Definitely.
And then there again, you know, our solvents. You
Mm-hmm.
got your standard solvent,
Mhm.
which can be sprayed on, swabbed on, dipped in your patch, whatever. And then we got your concentrate.
Concentrate.
And of course, the concentrate is the same thing. It's water based. You mix it up, and you can either use it for refills, or you can use it in an ultrasound cleaner, which is great,
Sure.
or even a parts tank.
Right.
You know, then we have our range ropes, and here again, it's just a pull-through cleaner swab. It's not meant to be an end-all, be-all to clean your bore out, but
Sure.
it's for quick cleanings, but it does a really good job.
Sure. Sure.
It's pre-impregnated with both the CLP and the solvent.
Okay.
Eventually, it's gonna get clogged up.
Right.
Throw it away, it's cheap enough. We try
Sure.
to price this stuff to where it's disposable. When
Mm-hmm.
you finally used it however many hundred of times, you can toss it out and just buy another one.
Right.
And then we get onto our phosphor bronze brushes. Now what we do with these brushes, they're a real high quality brush, and if you notice, like the tip right there, this is all solid brass shank, brass threads, and then it's folded over.
Mm-hmm.
Now some cheaper brushes you'll find, they're rolled and snipped.
Right. Right.
And when you start running through your firearms, if you get off a little bit, that little snip could actually scratch your bore.
Scratch it. Right.
So
right.
your better quality brushes, not just us, but any good quality brush, will have that.
Instead of nickeling your rifle in or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
So you clean it out,
Sure.
but there again, we sell these in convenient 3-packs, and we try to price them in a range. Like I think a 3-pack is right around $5.
Sure,
So
sure.
it's in a reasonable price range.
Right, right.
And just like any other brush, it'll last you the normal amount of
Sure,
time.
sure.
Just depends on how you clean.
Right.
So
Unfortunately, there's just no capitalism on this type of stuff.
yeah, well, yeah, and that's the thing, So what you're trying to do is, there's with oils and solvents, there's always going to be newer technologies,
Sure.
stuff like the durable tools, not so
Right.
much. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring the customer the best version of that product you can
Absolutely.
at the most reasonable price. Because
Right, right.
I mean, I don't know about everybody, but I know I work hard for every dollar,
Sure.
and I got to think about every place I spend a dollar,
Sure,
and,
sure.
and this is no different. And I know other people,
Oh, you're in the same
everybody's
boat.
like that. They're in
Yeah.
the same boat.
And that's true, but if you're buying any firearm, whether it's $200 or if it's $2,000, I
Right.
mean, you still need to have, good quality solvents, good quality lubricants, anything.
Yes.
Because you definitely want to pass that. I know for my son, I
Right.
want to pass those weapons down to him,
Right, absolutely.
or any product down to him. And this is just not for hunting industry,
No.
or the 3-gun industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of 1,000 uses that you could be using
Oh,
this
sure.
for. Automotive,
Yeah.
anything.
Oh, absolutely. I find myself all the time. Matter of fact, one of my sponsored shooters, he was going down to a big match, and he was hauling a trailer full of steel, got a flat tire, and he couldn't get the lug nut off.
Yeah.
And he actually shot a picture, but he squirted some of this oil on there, and he waited a few minutes, and sure enough, he was able to break
Break
those
it
lug
loose.
nuts
No
off.
kidding.
So, lots of different uses.
Yeah.
Around the house, I find myself using it on everything.
yeah.
I have a friend who's a custom knife maker, and he makes a lot of lockbacks, and he uses the oil on his
Oh,
lockbacks.
sure.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, there's
Yeah, and I mean you have this and lubricant in the spray bottle, just
Yeah.
like if you would, any type of
Right.
spray solvents or spray lubricants
Right.
that's out there on the market today. So.
yep, absolutely.
Because I see, man, I'm always spraying. I use that solvent, spray down, clean my bowl,
Yeah,
clean everything.
well, sure.
Because
Sure, absolutely.
you really got a spruce sap on it or
Yeah.
pitch, whatever.
Well, it does, and it cuts through all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and it's pretty handy. And I've been known to oil like the hinges on my car door and stuff.
Well, I was just thinking, I was like, man, I got a couple squeaky old truck door out there.
Yeah.
That wasn't gonna work out.
Yeah,
great.
no, absolutely.
You
it
might even
does.
feel it, help it.
It does. It's a great gun oil, but
Yeah.
you find yourself using stuff like that. And even the grease too. There's places you're like, oh, I could use a
Yeah.
little bit of lubricant right there, and you use it.
Right.
And what we try to do too, like the oil and even the solvent, we have them in little 1-ounce bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get a couple 1-ounce bottles and a syringe of the grease, and you can throw it in your shooting bag. You could throw it in a little kit that you keep on your belt if you're hunting. Your glove box.
Sure,
You always have it with you. So no matter when you're in the outdoors, a lot of things happen.
sure.
Whether it's your firearms or your rod and reel, your bow, your car,
Right.
whatever. And a little bit of maintenance material can go a long way. if you need it.
Absolutely. This Chem X I had in my Blacks Creek, when we were elk hunting. So I'm glad I had it because it dumped snow on us.
Yeah,
And,
right.
was able to get a shot
Yeah.
off. So
No, absolutely.
just knowing that was going to be fail safe is
Yeah.
it's worth having that around.
Yep.
It doesn't take up any space.
Yep, no,
You
it
know,
really
so-
doesn't. It's funny because you say that every year out here they have a New Year's Day 3-gun match.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's brutally cold out
Oh,
there
yeah.
usually. And we sponsored it this year because we specialize in cold weather oils.
Sure.
And we made sure every shooter got a bottle of oil. And I wasn't there, but the match director told me it sure came in handy because
Right.
some people were having some serious problems with their firearms in that cold, and they were squirting the lubricant in there, and they were able to enjoy the rest of their match.
Yeah, well, that's
So,
proof.
yep, exactly.
That's proof.
Exactly.
That's enough right there.
Yep.
If you got those guys, because you can just watch them shoot on TV and notice that hey,
Sure, right. And that's the thing, and it may be subjective, but
Sure.
there's a lot to be said for that.
Absolutely.
If people are using it and it's working, that's what matters to the vast
Sure.
majority of people. All the lab data and all that's great, but
does it work?
the guy in the
That you wanna
field,
make sure- yeah.
does it work for him? And yet, yes, it does.
Right, exactly. Well, tell us where we can find it. Where can we
Oh,
buy it?
well, On our website, it's
Sure.
just libertygunlube.com.
Sure.
And so we have a store on there, we have a blog, so you can get a lot of good information.
Sure.
From there, you can get to our YouTube channel. One of the things, there's some tests videos on there, and the other thing we're doing on our YouTube channel is some of our sponsored shooters are starting to do tip videos.
Sure.
So it's not even necessarily about our cleaning products, but just shooting competition, hopefully hunting type of tips and stuff like that. And they're, again, just more value to our customers so they can get that information out there. And there's definitely some select stores around the country. On our website, we have a list of dealers that
Sure.
sell our products, and hopefully that'll be building with time.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
get to the point where you don't have to necessarily buy it online.
Right, right.
Although that being said, you can also get it on Amazon
Sure.
and even eBay, actually.
Oh,
And
wow.
my understanding is on our Facebook page, the Liberty Gun Lube Facebook page, you can even buy it from there. So we'll see. Nobody's done it yet,
No.
but you theoretically could. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible
Sure.
for people to buy the product.
Absolutely. Well, you can always check out on thebowmaniac.com. Also, click on Liberty Lubricant on the icon to shoot you right over to Jim's site, and you guys can get all up to date on all this fancy technology.
Yep.
I'll just say it shines.
That works. That'll be our new tagline.
Absolutely,
It shines.
it shines. And it works, yeah, and it works.
And it
yeah.
works.
So we can't forget that.
Yeah,
And it works.
absolutely.
So, well, Jim, I appreciate you coming by.
Shane, thank you very much.
I appreciate the wealth of information that you've given to us and for the
Yep.
audience here, and hopefully we'll be seeing some more of you, and I can't wait. I got some new Christensen arms coming in, and
Excellent.
we're gonna be.
I know for a fact it'll work really well on those.
Yeah, I know. Jeez, they're a fine piece of equipment.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Sir,
I
thank
appreciate
you. I
You
appreciate
betcha,
it.
Jim. You
Okay,
bet.
thanks for having me.
You betcha. Take care.